Okay, so I'm thinking it's time to get this on the road, and I want to talk about Skinwalker Ranch Season 2, Episode 3. Um, Before I get to this episode, I want to say I'm sorry because I got two things wrong in my last video. I stated that there was no discussion about dating the petroglyphs, and that there was a question about um, similar petroglyphs by the Ute tribe in the area. Both questions, Eric and Dr. Taylor both asked about dating these things. And Dr. Garza did address Ute Indian tribe petroglyphs in the area that were similar to the rock art that was discussed. So I just want to say, okay, but the thing still holds. If you can't date them, I still would like to know, because that's an answer that still needs to be answered, or a question still needs to be answered. Also, want to tell you that earlier tonight I had some really good meatloaf, and I made the mistake of taking a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and I didn't wait long enough, so I might be burping a little bit. I'll try to not, but just so you know, that's why. Let's see. All right. I'm going to go over here and let's see. I'm going to put in Skinwalker Ranch. Here, let me go to, I think it's this one. Let's go to Skinwalker Ranch. No, it's just, I don't know what that means, but carrot browsing. Let's just go to Skinwalker Ranch. From the Earth to Skinwalker Ranch. Same place, hasn't moved. Here it is, Skinwalker Ranch in the Unitah Valley Basin. There's a forest up here this way, and I think there's some more that way, but it is really interesting to think about Skinwalker Ranch. Tonight's episode is no different. I think there are a few things that you can talk about. Let me pull up this other thing here. I have my notes. I watched the show downstairs on the big TV and on the laptop. I made, instead of using 3x5 cards, I used Google Notes. I figured I could, since I wasn't feeling very well after eating, I figured I wanted to be in the lounge chair and watch and take notes in Google Notes on the laptop. One question this season, okay, this is the third show. Question, this is more of a question for the show producers. They never explained what happened to Dr. Jim Sabala. He's a physicist who his skill set would be complements Dr. Travis Taylor in numerous ways. Dr. Sabala, he worked here in Austin, Texas, where I am. He worked here at a research facility for like 10 years, but he's a physicist, and he works specifically with quantum mechanics, and meaning he's well versed in theoretical physics and physics of the nature that the show is delving into: portals, Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is a wormhole, anomalous energy spikes a mile up above the ranch. Where do they come from? And I think he had some observation. I think he and Dr. Taylor had a difference of opinion. Dr. Taylor was more, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but thinking that the energy was emanating from below the surface, focused by the Mesa Ridge, and then at a mile above the ranch. Dr. Sabala was more inclined to think about energy coming from somewhere else hitting the ridge and then focused back into a focal point. I mean, they both agreed there's an energy point focused about a mile above the ranch, which is good. I mean, and it's good to have different perspectives. So I'd like to see the guy brought back onto the show. I don't know why he didn't. Maybe he chose not to. Going into this type of show, it is a scripted show, and this is a very controversial subject, especially for a scientist. You don't want to ruin your career. You're standing with your peers, and who knows, he may have been pressured. I'd hope that because of science is investigating the unknown. I mean, and I'd encourage him to explore the possibilities, keep your mind open, and come back on the show, dude. I miss not seeing you, and I hope that the producers feel the same way. Now, tonight, we were introduced, I guess, almost right away to Colonel John Alexander, who is a U.S. Army officer who worked at the ranch with the Bigelow team, Robert Bigelow, who owned the ranch for, I think they said, 2 decades. Interesting to note that he said they experienced odd phenomena the first day that they took ownership of the property. When Bigelow bought the property, he immediately locked down the property, and the first day they had anomalous behavior. What does that remind you of? When Dr. Travis Taylor was invited to be on the ranch, and he goes up to the Mesa Ridge, and all of a sudden there's anomalous behavior. There's anomalous energy spikes, anomalous readings off multiple instruments that shouldn't exist, if they do, right? And that starts the investigation. That's why I'm interested in this whole deal, because science, right? It's repeatable, it's observable, it's testable, it's falsifiable. You have to be able to test, and by observation, and you have to be able to falsify your test. Meaning, if you cannot falsify the test, the science is bad science. You have to be able to say, it's not that, it's not that. You test, you observe, you get feedback, you have a theory, a hypothesis, if you will, and you test your hypothesis using experiments. Good science. Nothing in this show has been bad science. In my opinion, I think it's all been good science. And I happen to agree with Dr. Taylor. I'm not really thinking of Skinwalker Ranch in terms of paranormal activity. I think this is the universe we live in. And because we don't know everything about the universe or multiverse, there are 12 dimensions. I mean, Dr. Michio Kaku, I think he has a book on this of multi-dimensional reality, string theory, which kind of proposes some answers to questions about dimensional reality. Not to mention you have quantum entanglement. I mean, you have a particle here on Earth and a particle that theoretically could be millions of light years away, and one changes state and instantaneously the other changes state, breaking the laws of physics as we think of them, the speed of light being an absolute. How do those two particles communicate without using light? It's an interesting question. So we already know that the speed of light is a limitation of velocity for a physical object through space, but is it a limitation on quantum mechanics? I don't know. I don't have an advanced degree in physics. I wish I did now, because this stuff you really find interesting. The other thing that Colonel Alexander talked about was seeing something in a tree, and someone on the ground had a rifle and shot what was up in the tree. I mean, not knowing what it was, I mean, it seems kind of, I don't know that, trigger happy might be a term, but okay, so they shot it. It fell. Good shot. Whatever that was fell out of the tree, and after it fell and hit the ground, it disappeared. And the next morning they investigated and they found a 3-prong, looked like a raptor. You can think of an alien species that's rumored to exist. Meatloaf. But the alien species being the reptoids. All right. Yeah. Yes, I'm into the lore. I read this stuff because when people talk about it and put it in terms of the known universe, about talking about things that we don't know, it gets back to that, ancient alien theory, I guess, in a way, that when people have a limited vocabulary and only think in terms of today's technology, they try to explain what they cannot explain by using terms that they know about. Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel. So there was a being in a tree that was there but not there. Camouflage, maybe? Trying to observe. It was high in a tree, had a position. I mean, that's what you would do if you're looking, you were watching, taking a position, a high position. I mean, that's why they built the tower, right? You want a position that overviews your domain to keep an eye on your cattle. What was up in the tree that they shot, that fell, that disappeared? Interesting question. But, it brings to mind 1987, Arnold Schwarzenegger had a show that was a hit show called The Predator. And The Predator had active camouflage. So it bent light around its body shell and was, for the most part, invisible, but not quite. You could still see it if you looked at it. I think that, it's kind of an interesting theory, because that's in the realm of, if the human hand can imagine, or if the human mind can imagine it, the human hand can build it. That's where I'm going with that. So because, Star Trek things are all sense of reality, because now we're even talking about warp speed and spaceships and stuff. So if the human mind can imagine it, the human hand can build it. We have, is it predictive programming? But we have a being of some sort that was seen in a tree, that was seen but not seen, was shot, had a physical form, had weight, was subject to the laws of gravity, because after it was shot, it fell. That's the story of Colonel Alexander. And if you don't want to believe a colonel in the United States Army, you don't become a full bird colonel in the United States Army by being a crackpot, right? So then he went into, what could it be? And he said portals, which have been the subject of a lot of this show, has been either interdimensional, intradimensional. And I spoke last week on the subject of the Enchanted Rock, about another place that has a portal mystique, a portal legend. When you go through the Enchanted Rock, you go into the tunnel and you come out the other side somewhere, someplace else. All right. You have something at Skinwalker Ranch that might be explained by an Einstein-Rosen bridge with a wormhole, which I think is where Travis Taylor's going. Maybe. And maybe that's why Jim Sabala is not on the team on this season. The next thing was the diode lasers, high-powered diode lasers, and they're blue lasers. They're not green. Laser light is can be focused, and different kinds of lasers, chemical lasers, electric lasers with diodes. I mean, they're all your exciting energy, producing light and focusing that light, and using a computer to scatter that light. And it makes me think, they were doing an experiment at Homestead 2, and they had sort of a rectangle with a grid looking for anomalous bending or changing of color of the light. Because they're using a diode blue light laser, you could either, we were talking about metamaterials. So if there was something that was expanding or changing the environment where this laser light was focused or projected, it would bend due to gravitational forces, or it might change color due to the difference of, like if a portal opened up of a Einstein-Rosen bridge, or the wormhole, the event field of that wormhole would be different. Put it that way. It would be challenging for light to remain focused on a wavelength in that kind of environment, which is where I think that Dr. Taylor was looking for. So good experiment, but it made me think about something else, because I also like to watch those ghost shows. Sometimes they're interesting, to think of. I've said that before, to think of things that might be, to keep an open mind and not discount something just because we don't understand it. But one of the tools used by, I want to use paranormal investigators. All right. I hate the term paranormal because I think if it's in the universe, it's normal. It's just we don't know how to explain it using our current knowledge base of what we understand about the universe. Right. But using lasers and having a pattern of dots. The thinking being that if you had a pattern of dots, I mean, it's a similar type of experiment, but it's different in that someone who is looking for a ghost or an emanation or a distortion of a reality, of a field, you're going to look for the distortion of light, of a laser light. So you have a room that is spattered with laser light. And if a ghost comes in there, then you're going to see an outline, a distortion of that laser grid field by the outline or what you think might be a ghost. All right. Could be something else. I'm going to call it a ghost. What if you applied that here on Skinwalker Ranch and do it long term? Meaning all they had was an experiment. They had really high powered lasers and they did it from a distance. They were trying to do the reflectivity off the mesa, and they had some suggestion that did exist. And then they went to 2 different types at Homestead 2, but why not do a laser grid type of experiment and do it long term? Set up observational cameras, temperature infographic, infrared, infrographic. You're talking different things, but a laser grid using 2 different kinds of lasers. Because 2 different kinds of lasers give you more information. And if you use a blue laser and maybe a green laser, because you're talking RGB spectrum, the same kind of distortion effect, you just have the grid running and have cameras pointed at it from different angles, because the grid would be on the solid objects in that area, everything, trees, the Homestead 2, the building, anything, including high in the trees too. And you could do that and have a monitor on that spatial field. And you're looking for, again, the distortion of the laser beams, changing light, changing direction. You'd have, spattering. Possible. I mean, that's an experiment. I was like, man, that sounds like ghost busting, but it'd be cool to do a long-term experiment, not just for however long. I don't know how long they were out there. They don't give an indication about how long this experiment was run. I don't think they had, other than the hot spot that was above them, and then they went inside Homestead 2 and had temperatures drop, which is something else that's been reported in the paranormal thing. But again, I don't like using paranormal to describe nature, because it's in the universe. It's something that we just don't explain or can't explain right now. Let's see. One thing that I thought was really interesting that if you lose, did I lose my feed? I can't tell. If you lose your free feed, refresh your browser. That's from my wife who's watching. Um, anyhow, one of the questions that was asked by Dr. Taylor, and I'm going to think I'll cut it after this, cut the show after this. And what I would like to leave you with, maybe an open question, is the implications. If you had a laser experiment, and if you found evidence of an Einstein-Rosen bridge that actually existed, it's not ours. It takes an enormous amount of energy to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge, theoretically. All right? And it's not the Chinese, it's not the Russians, and it's not Area 51, unless they are using an alien ship to do it. But what are the implications of that? If you can prove, or you have evidence to suggest that there is a mechanism, there is something that's happening at Skinwalker Ranch, why that ranch and why is it happening at that place? That's an open question. I think that's why they're looking for this stuff, but you're getting closer to an answer. What are the implications of finding that evidence? It still doesn't answer the question, why there? It still doesn't answer the question of who, other than it's coming from somewhere else because it's an Einstein-Rosen bridge. You'd have to say it has to be somewhere else, either off planet, as Dr. Sabala said, or something else. Is that why the energy is focused 1 mile above the ranch? Is it coming from below the earth, or is it coming from somewhere else? Energy focused. I think Dr. Taylor is also I think he has an optic engineering degree. So he's also an astronomer, and having an optics engineering degree, kind of astronomy and optics and telescopes, I mean, that's his gig. And he understands lasers because they're all optical devices. And he asked that question, what are the implications? If we find evidence of an Einstein-Rosen bridge, a wormhole, what are the implications for that? Is that why Robert Bigelow's research is not available to the public? I think that is an interesting question. And I think it's an open question. And I think it's a rhetorical question by Dr. Taylor, but I think that's the sign of a good scientist. He's thinking about the implications of validating a theory, the Einstein-Rosen bridge of wormhole. You're on the level of doing a CERN super collider experiment kind of thing. You're finding validating the Einstein-Rosen bridge wormhole kind of says, well, maybe the Bermuda Triangle is real. Maybe the Alaskan Triangle. There's something to this. Maybe these people or these aliens, if they exist, next month maybe we'll have a report from the Pentagon that says we have anomalous, unidentified aerial phenomena that is not Russian, not Chinese, and not us. We do not understand what they are. A lot of people say, well, it would be impossible for aliens to come here because the distances are so vast. It would take them hundreds of thousands of years to come here from X, from that planet way over there on the other side, or a different galaxy, unless they are able to generate an Einstein. They're a level 4 civilization. They can use the power of the sun, of solar, the energy from a sun, or the energy. I think there's 3 to 4 different levels. But what's to say that they're using a wormhole to travel They have 0 point energy. They're using anti-gravity to propel their vehicles, right? What's to say that they're using that? If that is true, they're using an anti-gravitational device to propel their vehicles through our atmosphere or through our water or through space, then that means that they are capable of using a wormhole, opening up a portal and going somewhere else instantaneously through space and time. That's the theory. That's what an Einstein-Rosen bridge means, and that's the implication. That it's possible for alien life to visit us openly. That's the implication for me, is you can't say that aliens can't come here because the speed of light is a limitation. They don't have that limitation. And what I spoke about last week, if they are using a rectangular, illuminated, amber-looking portal as a viewer, a camera, and they're listening in, they're inquisitive, they're curious about us, just like we're curious about whatever they are. And they have a portal that opens up, and they're watching Dr. Travis Taylor eat a hamburger, and Caleb shines a light on it. And like I said last week, oh shit, turn it off. Okay, they probably didn't use oh shit, but whatever an alien poops, all right, whatever they call it. Do aliens curse? All right, okay, I'm out there. That's time for me to kind of like change a little bit. Like I said, I shouldn't have taken the apple cider vinegar after eating tonight, and I apologize. And anyhow, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good week. And I will, this is live stream number 3. I will try to, I don't know, if you have any suggestions for me, because I like Skinwalker Ranch and talking about discussing the show itself. And I don't know, maybe I'll write the producers and ask them if I can live stream the show with commentary and put myself in a little box, and maybe they'll give me permission to do that. Don't know.